Today, I want to teach you that series book readers walk alongside characters for many pages, getting to know them over time. Along the way, characters tend to change, and when they do, it pays to study how evolving pressures and motivations can cause those changes. Let's think about how we might do this in a series. Here's the process I usually go through when I'm reading a long series, and I notice that a character is acting differently than I remember. Listen up and see if you can harvest the steps I take in this sort of situation. First, I notice the change in the character and try to name it. Did the character go from naive to skeptical? From trusting to bitter? Second, I think about changing pressures and motivations that could be behind this, almost like I'm a doctor trying to diagnose a disease. Could it be this? Could it be that? Finally, I'll develop a working theory about what's going on with this character, and I read on with that theory in mind, testing to see if it feels right or if it needs to be revised. We'll try out each step together to see whether this kind of thinking might help us out in our series. I'll try it out with a book I'm reading, and then you can think about your book. Right now, take a moment to pick a character that you could think about, a character who has changed throughout the story. Okay, first, we'll notice the change and try to name it. So I've been rereading the Hunger Games series, and I'm thinking about Prim, Katniss's sister. With Prim, I noticed that she went from being weak to stronger. But I think it will pay off here to be more careful with my language. It wasn't weak exactly. Let me see if I can get closer to what I'm really trying to say. I think it's more that Prim changed from being innocent and kind of sheltered and protected to being tougher and able to face reality. Readers, I want you to try this step with your book, with your character. Notice the change in your character and try to name it. Pause the video while you do this. Okay, let's try step 2. I'll think what may have contributed to this change. And I'll think specifically about changing pressures and motivations. I know it might be more than one of those things that's causing this change. For Prim, did her pressures change? Maybe. I think that by book 2, when there were stricter rules in her district, more people came to her house needing medical help. Then, she had pressure placed on her as one of the only people who could heal injuries in town. She had to get stronger. I could stop here, but I want to explore this more fully. So I'll be sure to also think about motivations. Did her motivations change? Well, now that I asked that question, I remember that she was really affected when Katniss was taken away to the Hunger Games. So maybe she is more motivated to fight back against the Capitol. Instead of just survival, Prim has started to see that changing the world might be even more important. Now try step 2 with your book. You've named a character change. Now think about changing pressures and motivations. Remember to think like a doctor. Could it be this? Could it be that? Pause the video while you work on step 2. Before we move on to the final step, I want you to reflect on your thinking. What new pressures are facing your character? Are there new motivations, new goals, or dreams that the character has? Don't forget to think about both pressures and motivations and say more about what you're thinking. Final step. We want to develop a working theory about what's going on with this character and read on with that theory in mind. In my book, Considering the Options, I'm thinking that the motivation change is the biggest factor behind Prim's change. She now sees the big picture in her society and wants to be a part of fighting back, just like her sister. So I'll go back in the book with that theory in mind, looking to see if it continues to make sense or needs to be revised. Now try this step. Think about all the possible pressures and motivations that could have caused your character to change, and jot down your working theory. Pause the video while you do this last step. Readers, take your working theory with you as you read today so you can do the rest of step 3 over the next few days. Consider whether this theory still feels right as you read on.